Hey guys, it's Raya. I want to talk about healing ancestral karma. This morning while I was meditating, I work really closely with the ancestors, being a shaman. And it's important to remember that we are very old souls. And we come into this life as souls with a task to heal part of our ancestral karma so they can be released from their bondage to be released up into heaven on earth, the 5D, 12D, Rainbow Bridge, all of the above. So it's important to remember that our souls are old and we're going through this ascension process to release things from our soul. So it's important to connect with your ancestors. You can do this by asking. I'm getting ready to go for a jog, so by when you're meditating, you're sitting down in a meditative position and you're clearing your mind, listening to some good calming music, and you ask your spirit guides, your oversoul, and your ancestors to come forward, and you communicate with them. They're connected to us. They're just like our angels. They're with us all the time. So to vocally sit down and connect with that space, and then sit in a meditative space and let them bring you ideas, bring you thoughts, things that you need to work on. Mine this morning was when I was a child, stuff I went through on my mother's side of the family. She was given up for adoption. Her mother was given up for adoption. My mother didn't give us up for adoption, but she took an absence from my abusive father to find a better life for herself. But as children, we don't understand that. So I was in a space of not being good enough, not being worthy enough, not being able, always working hard and never it being enough. So it was the self-worth, never being enough. Didn't matter how hard I worked, it was never enough. So I'm connecting in my space, in my universe, with that same energy. So I've been praying about it for a long time because I know I'm connected to the ancestors and I have to release this on my ancestral line. Praying about releasing that for a long time because I know that's not in my timeline right now. I know that's not where I'm at. So this morning when I was meditating, they brought me to when I did get to move back in with my mother. And I watched her suffering. I watched from an outer perspective because I assume anybody can connect like that. Me being an ancestor, that's how I heal, or me being a shaman, that's how I see and heal that within myself and for my ancestral line. So I got to see that, and this connects with the inner child, the mother syndrome, and the inner child and the suffering that we went through as children. I was hiding in a closet in the dark, all alone, not feeling good enough, with all these self-worth issues and not being loved and never being good enough and why don't you love me and da 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 da. I was stuck in this space of darkness, and I've done a lot of stuff like that with my inner child. It's like onions. You do one layer at a time. But to pull myself out of that space and then look at the space around me, what was going on? What were my parents going through? What was I going through? What did I go through previously? Because I went through sexual abuse and child abuse. And this one was a little different because I didn't get that from my mother. That was on my father's side of the family. On my mother's, I had to tune in on a different scale because it's different ancestors. To connect with her in that space and forgive, love, and fill it with light. Those are the first few things that you do. Always feel it, see it, fill it with as much light as you can. Like, I see this, I feel this, I'm releasing this now from my past, my timeline, my peridium, my blueprint, my DNA. I'm releasing this out into the ground and out into the universe. And I'm breathing through this, remembering and releasing, but repeating these same words. Usually you feel some goosebumps, usually you feel some sort of release, but sometimes not the first few times because there's so much trauma in there. There's trauma for a lot of us. But connecting with that space and then releasing that, it gets easier. But then I asked my ancestors, so what do I do? Where did this come from? And it brought me to my mother, and she was in a state of suffering. There was addiction, there was suffering, there was alcohol. But we try and numb out as starseeds, as children of numbness and trauma. We numb out, and that's a normal thing. To forgive her in that state, a huge release. But then it brought me to my grandmother. She too, addiction, abuse, she too was adopted and given away because, you know, I mean, it happens. It's part of our family line. It's part of some of the things that we have to deal with. Anyway, in my family line, it brought me all the way back to the Navajo Indians and the Hopi Indians. I don't know. I haven't done any research to see if they're intertwined at any kind, but that side of the family was from the Rocky Mountains. So it brought me to this. When the white man came into this village, they stole the women and they raped them. And they had to have white babies. They were thrown into the Christian religion. They were taken away from their heritage, their ancestors, their spiritual connection, and they were tossed into a pool of fucking craziness. That's how I'm going to word it. And they were forced to live in that. Well, of course there's going to be trauma. There's drama, trauma, fear, lack of, when you're ripped from everything. My grandmother, in that stage where they showed me, she was the younger daughter that was taken and raped. My grandmother was the medicine woman, and she longed, that's where the tie was. She longed for that to be released from the ancestral line because they know that it's connected to that. And then they're bound to that in that timeline until somebody comes along and heals it. So that's why releasing ancestral karma is so important. Being the medicine woman, I got goosebumps. Being the medicine woman, she bound that and prayed for a release to come. So a child of the stars, me, would come and connect in that space and release that. So they could be released from that timeline. So they could be released from that trauma, from that pain, from that suffering. Once I did that and connected in that space, it was abundance amount of light, usually is, or some sort of feeling, a release, a memory, like a huge, just like a goosebumps just doing it again. A huge release. To be able to connect in that space is an honor. But I'm not the only one that can do it. We can all do this. It takes practice and it takes dedication. You have to be dedicated to yourself and you have to be vocal. I've been praying about releasing this because I know there's been something in my subconscious. It's part of the Venus going on right now and the Saturn and the releasing karma. But I've been praying about this for like a couple weeks because I knew it was coming from my subconscious and it was coming from my soul. It was coming from my shadow self. So there's a sense of depression that kicks in when that happens. There's a sense of loss, a sense of all of these strong feelings of not being good enough, not being loved, all these things that happened stemmed from when I was a child. We're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. That is your cue to know that there's a release that's going to happen. So you tune into that space, you feast those demons, and you tune into that space, and you face it, and you release it, and then you ask ancestors, where is this coming from? Usually it stems from something a long time ago, like who knows how long ago it was when the white people came, and I had to release my Indian ancestors from that time space. But then it showed me my grandmother, my grandmother's grandmother, my grandmother's grandmother, and it went down the line of things to release. It totally helped me understand the addiction part of my past, the addiction part of my family's past. How when I'm out, when you're an empath, and you're a magician of any kind, you're connected to the light of any kind, we are sensitive to those energies. We are sensitive to the trauma. We are sensitive to the people around us. Sorry, this is my meditating space down by the garden. We are connected to that space. We have to release that from our timelines. So it was no longer a sense of loss. It was no longer a sense of denial or misunderstanding. It was a place to understand where the addiction came from, but also a place to understand how we can heal, how I can help my ancestors heal, how we can help other people heal, how we can connect with the light and ground that in. Once we connect to the light and ground that into our ancestral line, ground that into the earth and to the timeline, that is released. That darkness is released from the earth. It's released from our ancestors. We all ascend another level. So it's 100% necessary for all of us to be releasing these things from our family line. And if you can't do it, you should find a shaman. Or you should find somebody that can do such things because it's important. Once we release that from our land, because that was so many years ago and generations past, I released that timeline, that energy, that trauma, the darkness that happened so many years ago. So now the whole earth can ascend and I can ascend. I instantly felt an energy shift. I feel it in the earth. In fact, I'm coming outside today to do a powwow to release more of that energy from that timeline. We can all do that. In fact, it's 100% necessary to do that. We are all ascending together. The light, the earth, we're taking it with us as we go into light bodies. This is necessary to release this and to heal our ancestor karma. But also on another note, we're releasing that cycle. I'm releasing that timeline. I'm releasing that cycle. I'm releasing that karma, the past karma. I broke addiction. I broke the worth issues. I broke the love issues from my family's line on my mother's side. It's been steps like an onion. But to break that cycle, break that conditioning, and also it was abusive relationships. We always reach for abusive relationships because that's where that sense of loss is. We have to heal that part of that's how that ancestral karma comes in. That's how our cycles of karma come in. From generations. I didn't know that I reached for shitty fucking relationships because of my mother's mother and mother. I didn't know that. So today, to be able to meditate and connect with that space and release that from my ancestors and release that from my family is a huge release for me. Huge. It's going to stem into a lot of beautiful things. But to be able to connect in that space was amazing. And I'm rambling. But when it comes to abuse, addiction, karma, past, when we find ourselves in these shitty fucking cycles all the time, excuse my language, there's a reason. There's a reason. Reminds me of that damn commercial. Anyway, there's usually a reason that connects to your family and ancestral line. If you can clear your mind enough to meditate in that space and connect in that energy, it will help you release that. And if you can't do that or have a hard time doing so, you should find somebody to help you, because that's going to help the whole earth ascend. That's going to help the whole earth heal and step out into the light. And with Saturn in retrograde and Virgo in retrograde, I guarantee this is on a collective level for me. All this energy and the releasing the ancestral line, it's a collective level. So share this video. It will help other people also release that karma, the ancestral line, so we can ascend to our highest self. So we can ascend out into the light and then work on our crystalline body structures. So we can step into heaven on earth. It's a process. It's a long process. But we're taking the earth with us. We're taking our bodies with us. All of us are going to have to do this at some point. So we might as well face the fucking demon head on, release as much as we can, and heal that part of that time frame. Heal that peridium. Heal that part of ourselves and heal that part of our souls that are connected to that space. Trying to think if there's anything else anything else I need to say. I know it's just super important to be able to release that on a global scale for everybody. Everybody's going to be facing these things and going through these things. So it's important to connect in that space, to release that from your ancestral line, from your soul's journey. Anyway, sounds about good to me. After you meditate in that space, call in Venus, call in Saturn to bring you the discipline you need to release that, to heal that. Because once you release those things from your time frame and you release those things from your soul and your ancestors, there's a shift that you go through and there's an energy exchange that you release, but also there's a habit form that you can release. See, for me, that was my binge eating. That's when I started binge eating at that time. And I would eat my feelings. That's how whatever. Huge energy shift. But I instantly asked Saturn to help me release that structure and build a new structure. Because I don't like eating like that. And it's still a challenge for me to stop. When I get stressed out, I reach for food. That's what I do. And I still have a habit forming in that. So I asked Saturn immediately, help me release this habit forming from my blueprint, spiritual and body blueprint from my DNA. And help me keep that structure and build a new habit of reaching for the light rather than reaching for the food. Reaching for a jog rather than reaching for the food. Whatever it is, that is a release and a healthy form, healthy habitual form to build. It still needs structure. It needs discipline. It needs to be grounded in my time frame. And it takes 30 days to build a habit or break a habit. It takes a while to constantly train yourself. No, you don't want that. No, I don't need that. No, I don't like that. It takes a while. But then also on the other hand, I was reaching for Venus. Venus, please help me heal this time and space. And that was the light. That was the love. She is the planet of healing, of light, of love, of connecting in that space. To heal that for me and my family line, I got them goosebumps again. I will continue to heal that. Like today I was guided to go do a powwow. So I'm going to go do a powwow on my land to release that from my ancestors, to release that from the land and release the darkness. So the earth is ascending too. But I'm going to be bringing Venus with me and grounding that energy into her, or into the earth, so they can work together to ascend also. It's a huge cycle. We're all connected. The more work that we do to release these things from ourselves, from our soul's journey, and from the earth, the less the earth has to do, and the less you're going to have to do later. Because you're going to be, I'm guaranteed everybody's being faced with flicked in the head, with things that we have to heal. Things that aren't fitting our timeline. They're not fitting our vibration. Sit into a meditative space or connect with somebody that can help you release that. Release that from your soul and from your ancestral line. Amen. Okay, guys. I will see you later. 15 minutes around. That's all right. It's good news. It's good stuff. I will see you guys later for Wednesday energy. I'm feeling some ancestor stuff going on again too. So we're going to probably connect in that space. I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful morning. I'm going to go get on my jog before the kids are probably almost up already. I got to get some of a jog in anyway. I got to release that energy. So anyway, much love, guys. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful, awesome day, and we'll talk to you later.